Mega Voltage has done it again. For the 4th time now, an episode of this arc, episode 96 this time, defies expectations. Though in a different way than its predecessors, episodes 92, 94, and 95. Since they all ended up being better than anticipated thanks to the various ways in which they went against what was expected of them. Episode 96, on the other hand, only really had one big twist that did make it a more meaningful episode than it would have been otherwise. It very much had all the markings of a filler episode. However, I wouldn't necessarily say it turned out to be better than what I had in mind because of said twist. See, I went into this episode expecting, thanks to the preview, that it was just going to be about Liko and friends encountering a motorcycle gang belonging to the Dragon Clan who proceed to cause trouble for Liko and friends, which includes battling them using their Cyclizar. Again, totally sounds like a filler episode, right? A funny and nonsensical experience that is ultimately inconsequential. For the most part, this is exactly what this episode ends up being. Now sure, it turns out that Liko and friends run into the Dragon Motorcycle Gang because they are looking for Rayquaza, who was supposedly sighted in the vicinity of their territory. This added some much needed purpose to this episode that was not apparent from the preview, making it feel like more than just some random quest. However, I thought, surely they won't find Rayquaza, right? Or even get a clue as to where they might find it. I mean, that's what happened 3 episodes ago, thanks to Niabiko lying. So this will definitely be another fool's errand, right? Wrong. They actually, much to my shock, find Rayquaza resting inside a cavern that houses a shrine meant to heal Dragon-type Pokemon, with the Dragon Motorcycle Gang serving as its protectors. They found it one day and decided to care for it, with their hostile attitude towards outsiders being just a way to keep these sky-high Pokemon safe. I never expected that they would find Rayquaza this soon, let alone in this episode of all episodes and in such an anticlimactic and unspectacular way. Like wow, talk about defying expectations in big ways. I think this episode takes the cake thus far in this department. And yet, despite how shocking this development is, the actual reunion between Rayquaza and Liko and friends doesn't quite carry the weight or emotional resonance one might expect. I mean, think about it. It's been a little over a year in the timeline since Liko and Roy last saw Rayquaza. They fought so hard to get it on their side. They traveled across multiple regions, faced all sorts of tough obstacles along the way, etc. And they had to part with it under duress. So when they finally see it again, you'd think there'd be some major narrative payoff, some emotional beat that sticks with you, or at the very least, a significant revelation to change the trajectory of the story. But nope. They just kind of update Rayquaza on what they've been doing, reassure it that they'll keep moving forward, and let it go back to sleep. No shocking twist, no big turning point, not even a heartfelt moment to tie it all together. And I get it, Rayquaza's return is obviously meant to serve a long-term purpose. It'll almost certainly come back when the explorers inevitably make their move again. This episode is clearly setting the stage for that eventual return, showing us that Rayquaza is alive, recovering, and in safe hands until the time is right. But as much as I understand the intent, I can't help but feel conflicted. For something that should be huge, that should be impactful, it just kind of happens. And for a Pokemon like Rayquaza, who carries so much weight in this story and in the franchise as a whole, I expected more than just a quiet check-in at a hidden dragon shrine. It's an important development, yes, but an underwhelming one. Now shifting gears to Uruto, this episode really wastes no time showing us the downsides of having him as a traveling companion now. As much as I appreciated everything he did in the previous episode, to the point that I was willing to overlook most of his faults and reassess what I think about him as a character, all of that goodwill kind of takes a hit here. Uruto's pride, his trust issues, and that unbearable superiority complex are all on full display. He clashes with Roy constantly, refuses to cooperate, and basically acts like the world needs to revolve around him. There's a real my way or the highway energy with him, and while that might be part of his arc, it makes for a frustrating watch at times. His refusal to trust others, the way he accuses them of trying to ditch him again, and how he insists on doing things solo even when he clearly needs help, all just reinforce how difficult he can be to be around. But to be fair, this isn't just a regression or a showcase of what makes him so annoying at times. This episode also becomes a key step in his development. We learn more about his motivations, like how he wants to be the strongest because he wants to prove himself to someone, though he never says who. This mystery adds a new layer to his character and suggests that all this bravado might be covering up some deeper insecurity or past trauma. This someone he wants to get the approval of might have done or said something to him that made him feel unworthy or worthless unless he is the strongest. And of course, his bond with Sableye continues to shine, especially the scene where they eat all the pancakes in the middle of the night. It's hilarious, but it also shows that Uruto isn't heartless. He's just incredibly bad at expressing himself. Even when he tells Rayquaza that he doesn't want it because it's weak, it's obvious he's trying to motivate it in his own backwards way. Moreover, despite his rude attitude, he makes it very clear in this episode that he won't forgive anyone who harms Pokemon. This line alone shows that he still has strong values, he just hides them under layers of arrogance. Also, he reveals that he has a Dusk Ball, which I assume is where he keeps Sableye. Though since this happens as he tells Liko why he wants Rayquaza and to be stronger, perhaps there's more to this Dusk Ball than meets the eye. Additionally, I'm honestly still convinced he has a crush on Liko. That or he's just really bad at talking to girls. I mean, the guy turns into a whole different person around her. He actually listens to her, lets her cook for him, heck, he helps her do said cooking, and he even agrees to cooperate with Roy, something he refused to do until Liko suggested it with a tone that indicates she was disappointed in him. Hilariously, he even climbs up a tree to avoid interacting with her further. There's something kind of sweet about how Liko brings out a more human, vulnerable side of him. This nurturing, extra kind side of her is simply adorable and heartwarming. Anyone would drop their guard with her. At the same time though, older women seem to straight up just terrify him, as evidenced when the Dragon Rampage Gang are revealed to be women. Maybe that's why the writers chose to keep their identities a secret until the masks came off. They wanted to blindside Uruto specifically and provoke this kind of telling reaction. The fear and discomfort he shows in this moment says a lot. Not just about his general awkwardness with women, but possibly something more personal, something rooted in his past. Namely that perhaps the person he wants to impress, the one who made him feel unworthy and worthless, is a woman. It would explain a lot about his nervousness and guarded behavior. Now let's talk about the Dragon Rampage Gang, who, I'll be honest, I initially assumed were all men based on the preview. But something about the voices, even through the masks, tipped me off midway through the episode that they might actually be women. Their builds, mannerisms, and hairstyles only added to the suspicion. So when the reveal happened, I wasn't that surprised. Certainly not as much as Uruto, but I still appreciated the twist. While none of the gang members are especially memorable as individual characters, I do like what they represent. As members of the Dragon Tamer clan, they could have easily tried to capture Rayquaza and claim it as their own. After all, it's one of the strongest dragon Pokemon out there. Any dragon specialist would love to have it. But instead, they chose to protect it. This alone says a lot about their character and values. Also, am I the only one who is reminded of Jason Voorhees when I see the masks they wear? Especially with the red chevron. If this is an intentional reference, I love it. I also love the visual design of their Cyclizar. They're customized with riding gear that makes them look even more like motorcycles, but without compromising their ability to battle. It's such a creative way of blending form and function, and no Pokemon could be more fitting for a dragon-themed biker gang than Cyclizar. Plus, the fact that this all takes place in Blackthorn City makes everything even better. This is a city built around the dragons. It's home to the Dragon-type gym led by Claire, cousin to the Dragon Master Lance, and it's also home to the famous Dragon's Den. So if there was ever a place for Rayquaza to hide out, this is it. I wouldn't even be surprised if the cavern where Rayquaza is resting is meant to be the Dragon's Den itself, especially with the shrine to dragons inside. And speaking of Lance, I couldn't help but notice that the Dragon Rampage Gang's outfit resembles his. And they even have a Charizard logo that looks a lot like the one Freed has on his jacket. Small details but very cool. Also, given that they promised to keep looking after Rayquaza, I'm almost certain this won't be the last time we see them. Horizons has done a solid job so far of bringing back side characters. So if Liko and friends need to retrieve Rayquaza when the time comes, I fully expect the gang to show up again. As for the Wigglying Gang, well, let's just say their one representative in this episode is a lot. He's weird, random, and obsessed with serpentine Pokemon, which is why he tries to steal some Dratini eggs. His speech patterns are just bizarre. He adds wiggly or some variation of it to nearly every sentence, and he even does these little wiggly motions to match. Calling him eccentric would be an understatement. That said, his role in the episode is actually pretty minimal. He mostly serves to give Liko and the others an opportunity to prove themselves to the Dragon Rampage Gang by stopping him and protecting the eggs. That's it. But considering he's clearly part of a larger group, I wouldn't be surprised if he and the rest of the Wigglying Gang pop up again later with a bigger role to play. Maybe next time they'll be more threatening, or at least a little less weird. Also, I'm sure Jesse would appreciate his taste in Pokemon. Now, in terms of battles, we technically get two. First, Uruto and Roy versus the Dragon Rampage Gang, and then versus the Wigglying guy. Unfortunately, neither battle is particularly impressive. They're slow, lacking energy, and not especially creative in terms of choreography. Not to mention short and unspectacular. Even the fact that Lucario and Sableye both Mega Evolve in the second battle can't really salvage it, since they end things with one move, so we barely see them in action while Mega Evolved. It's disappointing that both battles are so lackluster. They could and should have been better, even if I understand that action was not the point of this episode. Still, they do serve a narrative function. Uruto gets humbled in both of them, something I find quite satisfying. This pushes him, with help from Liko, to finally acknowledge that maybe, just maybe, he's not always right, and that teamwork does matter. Therefore, while the battles themselves don't shine, they do help move Uruto's development forward, which I'll take as a win. So yeah, overall, this episode is a strange one. It has all the hallmarks of filler, random biker gang, silly villain, a relatively isolated story, but somehow ends up being more important than expected and also more underwhelming. The reveal that Rayquaza has been resting this whole time, protected by the Dragon Rampage Gang, is undeniably significant, but the way it plays out is so casual and anticlimactic that it barely feels like the major milestone it should be. Combine this with weak battles and a frustrating reintroduction of Uruto's worst traits, and you've got an episode that's important in terms of plot, but kind of messy in execution. That said, it's not without merit. We get further insight into Uruto's character and a glimpse at the inner conflict that drives him. The dynamic between him and Liko continues to be intriguing, especially with how soft he becomes around her. The setting is fantastic with Blackthorn City and its dragon-centric lore, adding much needed context and flavor. And while the Rayquaza reunion fell flat emotionally, its reappearance sets up the path for what's to come. At the end of the day, I'd call this an episode that surprises by being both more and less than what it seems. A major moment is disguised as a minor one, and a filler-like story still manages to move key pieces into place. It's certainly not the strongest outing in this arc, but it continues the trend of it defying expectations in unpredictable ways. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more like it, feel free to click the links on screen. And if you'd like to support the channel and help me keep making content like this, you can find ways to do so in the description below. Your support truly means the world to me. Thank you so much for watching, and let's meet again in the next video.